Doug, you're live on Facebook whenever you're ready.
All right, welcome to the Thursday, June 11th, 2020 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. My name is Douglas Hovey, our chairman. We'll do roll. Robert Peckham.
Here.
John Migleroni.
Here.
Christian Chamberlain.
Here.
Beth Mossworth.
Here.
Heather Robinson.
Here.
Jesse Redlow.
Here.
We also have Kevin Wilson, Director of Building and Fire Inspection. Eric Black, our zoning board attorney, and Heather Voss, deputy town clerk, with us tonight. Do I have a motion on the approval of minutes from May 6th?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve our minutes from the May 6th, 2020 meeting.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? There being none, motion's carried. Our first item tonight is from Timothy Thomas, a 6-month extension request for application numbers 2019 61, 62, 63, 64, and 65 for a 160 square foot shed, a 34 foot wide driveway, a 5 foot side setback for a driveway, a 13 foot wide driveway extension, and a 34 foot wide driveway entrance. Property is located at 23 Bradgate Park, West Henrietta, New York. Any discussion?
Do we have any idea why it didn't get completed already?
No, they haven't been able to start because of COVID-19 delays.
Okay. I have no issue.
Mr. Chairman, I was unable to locate the documents, so I'll be abstaining from this vote since I was unable to review the request.
Okay. All those in favor of granting the extensions, please signify, or we'll do roll, sorry. Robert Peckham.
Aye.
John Migleroni.
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain.
Aye.
Beth Mossworth.
Aye.
Heather Robinson.
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Abstain.
Aye. Motion carries. Our first application tonight is by Timothy Maskew for application 2020-035 and 036. Hi, can you state a little bit about your project?
Are you talking, you're speaking to me, I assume?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, we want to widen the driveway to a 3-car wide driveway and go 10 feet past the edge of the driveway to, I own a boat trailer, and I know that, you don't want things sitting out in front. So other people have done is put like stone, gravel and stuff on the side of the garage so they could park the trailer and stuff past the edge of the garage. So since the driveway that was put in 7 years ago by Faber is completely deteriorating and falling apart, I'm putting in a whole new driveway. And I got 2 teenagers now. There's going to be 4 cars, and the car shuffle in the morning is not fun. So we're just trying to make things a little bit easier. And I've spoken to both my neighbors on either side. They even volunteered to come tonight if they felt they had to. And they, I said I didn't think it would be an issue. So, but they didn't have any problems with it. And I've talked to both of them before I filled out my application to do it as well.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the board?
I just want to say, it looks like your neighbors already have driveways about as wide as what you're proposing.
Correct. Yes. They both have 3-car garage. They both have 3-car wide driveways. Yes.
They do. Okay. So, and the third lane will be, is it going to be for parking cars or the boat trailer or?
Well, my thing is to put the trail right now. The wife's not happy because the trailer's in the garage, so it's not out in front. So the extension will be so the trailer can go back on the side of the house, and then we can still use the garage and the third, 3-car wide, so we're not shuffling.
Okay. And are you I'm going to think you're having someone do the work for you?
Yeah, Everblack. The company is Everblack.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing the whole thing because, like you said, it's deteriorating already. So okay.
Oh yeah, I have sinkholes down by the sidewalks. It's terrible.
Just to be sure that I understood it, you're gonna have gravel next to the garage and back, this 10
No,
feet,
it's all going to be pavement.
all paved, okay.
It's going to be all paved.
I've experienced the same sinkholes. I'm a block or so away. I've experienced it.
Yeah, and yeah. I'll just leave it at that.
Probably better.
Are they doing a full tear out and rebuild, or are they going to be because
It's a complete tear out, re-gravel underneath. It's probably going to sit, they said, the longer you can leave it, the better it'll be. So it's probably going to sit with just stone for about a month.
okay?
So we can drive over it and really compact it down. And then they'll put the top coat on.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the board? Heather, do we have any comments, questions, or concerns from members of our audience?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on this application?
Let's see here. It's mine. With regard to application ZBA 2020-035 and 036 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, has considered all relevant information, and 3, considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variances will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. Several of the neighboring properties have driveways of similar width. The variances cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The applicant wants cars and a trailer to be kept on the property in accordance to town code. The variances requested are not substantial. The variances will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. So drainage and the aesthetics to the property will not be impacted. And the difficulty relating to the variances was self-created. Driveway expansion requested was to accommodate number of drivers and a trailer that will be kept on the property. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby approves the variances as presented.
I second.
We'll do roll vote. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Mangleroni,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
She fell off.
okay, Jesse Redlaw,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye also. Motion carries. Okay, you're all set, sir.
Okay. Will I get permits sent to me, or do I call the company, tell them they can start? I don't know what to do now because this is a weird situation.
Kevin?
So there's no building permit required. The only thing is you're going down into the right of way, so you'll have to talk to the highway superintendent, Chuck Marshall,
Okay.
to get a highway access permit to do work within his right of way. It shouldn't be too long. You give him a call at the DPW tomorrow,
Okay.
or you can call me tomorrow at the building department when I get you in contact with him.
And what's his name again? I'm sorry.
Chuck Marshall.
And I just got to get permission from him to work in his right of way?
Just let him know what you're doing, and he'll take care of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a nice day.
Good night.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, our next application tonight is 037 by Robert Logo.
So for this variance, it's a 7-foot by 7-foot shed. Mr. Vogel, is there anything that you would like to add in regards to this application?
No, I think I filled out everything that was pertinent. It's just basically, we have a 600 square foot 2-tiered deck that goes down to the pool. And it's a very high wind area. And in the wintertime, in order not to have our patio furniture blow away, I have to strap it all down. And so we wanted to put the extra second shed in so that I could physically remove the items from the deck and store them away for the winter.
Did you have any issue with wind this past winter?
Yes, as a matter of fact, what I have to do is I have to put eye bolts underneath the joists and strap everything down. And then I have to put sandbags on the edges of the chairs so they don't lift up and blow away.
And will this storage shed have any electric in it?
No, it won't.
Any other questions for members of the board?
I have none.
Heather, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns for members of the audience?
Nothing.
Do I have a motion on this application?
Mr. Chairman, in regards to application ZBA 2020-037 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, has considered all relevant information, and 3, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. The variance cannot be achieved by some other means feasible due to the size of the deck and the wind issues, the need to store furniture versus strapping down. The variance requested is not substantial, 6 square foot over what is allowed by code. The variance will not have a negative effect on the physical and environmental conditions. The difficulty related to the variance was self-created. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve variance as presented.
I'll second that one.
Vote by roll. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Maglione,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Yeah, hi.
Heather Robinson,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries.
Now, should I stop at the town tomorrow and pay for the permit application?
You already submitted, correct?
Yes, I did, and they told me not to pay for the permit until the variance was approved.
Yep, so you can come in tomorrow with a check, we'll have it ready for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is 038 by Latoya Bradshaw, 28 Beckwith Road. Do you have anything to add to your application?
Yes, it's not 12 feet out. It's going to be 12 feet across and 6 feet out. I don't want to go past the sidewalk. The reason I want it is because the existing steps there, they're broken. The rail has broken off and I just want to cover it up. I don't want concrete stairs again. And I just pretty much want to just put a little wooden, deck right there. So I wasn't trying to go way far out, just no further than my sidewalk. It's just, I was going to go window to window.
So-
Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying that the variance doesn't have to be as deep as I think you requested, I think.
No, it's 6 feet deep, not 12. It would be 12 across. Just a little, it's going over the stairs, but I'm just widening the stairs a little bit, pretty much. And it's just so I could fit like a chair or two out there, so I don't have to keep putting stuff in the driveway and blows away and all that.
You only need a 35-foot setback then, not to 29 feet.
Right.
Heather, you have that?
Yeah, 35.
Any other questions for members of the board?
Makes sense to me.
No.
Heather, do we have any questions, comments, concerns from members of the audience?
Nothing.
Okay, do I have a motion on this application?
Oh, yes. Mr. Chairman, regard to application number ZBA 38 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby property, as there are other decks on the front of the house, the neighborhood. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The variance requested is substantial as the applicant is asking for a 35-foot setback. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions, as the deck will enhance the look of the house and replacing an existing deteriorating stairs. The difficulty relating to the variance was self-created as the applicant is requesting the variance, and be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, vote by roll. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Migliorone,
Here. Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. You're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next applications are 039 and 040 by Apex Rochester. We have a representative for these applications.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Jess Sudol with Passero Associates. We're the engineers and architects for the Apex project. Also on the call with us this evening is Tom George from Apex Rochester, who are the developers, builders, and the owners. The Apex project dates back several years. I'm sure many members of this board is familiar with it from a previous variance. Actually, several area variances that were requested and ultimately granted for the first phase of the project. Going all the way back to the initial application that we made with the town was actually for a special use permit at the town board level. And at that time, both phase 1 and phase 2, which is currently proposed, were considered by the town board, and as well as the seeker review. At that time, the second phase was considered at approximately 100 units. The size of that building and portion of the project has since been reduced down to 77. When we move forward with the site plan approval and review of phase 1 with this board, phase 2 was not included because at that time, the project, or the phase 2 portion of the project, had not been developed far enough along for us to go through all of the entitlements. Thus far, the construction of phase 1 has gone really well. So much so that the applicant has decided to move forward with phase 2 now, and are actually planning on so that the entire project can be a bit of feedback from, all right, there, that's fixed. So anyway, that's when we ultimately moved forward to phase 1, started construction, now are moving forward with phase 2. As you know, this first variance deals specifically with parking. This board may recall at the time there was a parking variance requested for phase 1. During that process, what we agreed to do was provide land bank parking, similar to what we had done in some of the previous projects, most notably the Hill, which is the former Racket Club. That land bank parking was then built recently, once we decided that phase 2 was going to be advanced. So that is actually already built and is out there today. For phase 2, it is a it's a 5-story building with 77 units, not 100. It will have a proposed shuttle service. And as this board may recall, the entire theme of really the Apex project in its entirety has been to locate as much density as possible at this site, which was the former Colony Manor Apartments, because it's so close to RIT. Some of the other projects we mentioned in our application, such as the Hill and the Lodge, are a lot further away from campus. So by locating it close to campus and having the ability to ride your bike or take the shuttle or walk, makes students much less dependent on actually having a vehicle. And secondary benefit is really the reduction in overall traffic impact to the Henrietta area specifically, really in this location. There's a lot of students that travel across the town or up East River Road, and that's greatly reduced by having this density and the students the opportunity to stay here. As mentioned in our application, we did study a number of projects in the area. Historically, the majority of the projects have been vastly overbuilt when it comes to parking. Projects like the Lodge and the Providence project just north to us in ACC's College Town development have between 40 to 50% vacancies in terms of their parking. So they really have a lot of parking that was built and never utilized, so much so that some of those projects are actually now leasing out those spaces because they're not used by the students living in those facilities. In terms of whether or not the parking variance is substantial, we're at about 1.9 per unit versus the 2.5 per unit code requirement. So we do not feel that that's a substantial request. It's certainly in line with some of the previous variances that have been granted. I do want to point out that previous projects that have included land bank parking, for the most part, haven't had to utilize that parking because the calculations that we've presented have proved to be more than adequate for those projects. Another thing I do want to point out is that the parking situation for these types of projects is very much a controlled environment. What I mean by that is that parking passes are issued to students when they sign their leases. So although we are very confident based on not only just development experience in the town of Henrietta, but also across all of Western New York, that the parking that we're currently proposing is more than adequate, in the unlikely situation that the parking demand started to approach the amount of parking spaces that we have, the applicant would simply have the ability to no longer offer on-site parking and then work with those future tenants to park elsewhere, potentially utilizing, again, a lot of those overpark projects that have existed for several years now. And that's, again, not an uncommon situation. And we are, as currently proposed, still well above ratios that we use in a lot of other projects across Western New York. As a matter of fact, in some communities, we're providing next to no parking just because of all the other multimodal opportunities that there are for students. Now, in terms of the setback variance, I think that one's relatively simple. It is a 10-foot deviation from the code requirement to get a drive aisle around the back of the building. For those of you familiar with the site, it's on the eastern portion of the site, and adjacent to us are some substantial overhead utility lines and also some railroad tracks. And then even further east of that is industrial development, but we certainly don't have any neighbors that would be impacted by the encroachment into that setback for the drive aisle. So in terms of whether or not this has an impact on the community or an environmental impact, we think in many ways it's very positive because, again, by locating this density so close to RIT, it really reduces the amount that people need to drive. RIT has very limited parking by design on their campus, so students living in these types of facilities can't even park on campus, which is one of the reasons why so many students come to these facilities and don't have cars. So again, we think it's a great project. This is really the last phase of it, and we're very much looking forward to moving forward and starting construction so that phase 2 can be completed at the same time as phase 1 in about a year from now. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for members of the board?
Oh, Mr. Sudol, I just have one question. First, I want to start by saying I appreciate all the data that you included in the application. It made it much easier to review and understand. How many students could live in these apartments? Like, what's the max capacity for the complex for this phase 2?
The entire complex, it's a mixture of 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. So there's a mix The total amount of students anticipated is around approximately 1,200. One thing I didn't point out earlier, and I apologize, is, as most of you know, this project included the demolition of the former Colony Manor project. Prior to demolition, and obviously all this COVID stuff, there was approximately 630 kids living at Colony Manor. And of those 630, only 250 actually had passes and actually had cars on campus. So under 40% of the total students, at this same exact site had cars before we started our project. If you applied that ratio of 40% to the 1,200 students that we have, it would be a demand of approximately 480. And of course, we're well above that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, just to clarify, I think Mr. Redlow asked the capacity of this building phase 2, or are we looking for the overall project?
I was asking for phase 2.
Okay.
I'm sorry, phase 2 is just over 300 students.
And the 731 proposed parking spaces, that's for the entire project, phase 1 and 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's based, so the 1,200 student number that you told me aligns with the 731, because those are the ones that are for the whole project.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I was off on that, but still the answer is satisfactory either way. Thank you.
Question I have regarding when you take 382 apartments and multiply times 2.5, which is the typical what the code allows for or what requires, I get 955, not 948. Where did the 948 come from? Was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was listening in on the workshop earlier and I heard that question raised. I went back, looked at our application materials, and our cover letter and application does include the 955 number. So I agree with your math, and I'm not quite sure how it got listed on the agenda as 948.
Okay, so you're going by 955 is what it normally would, that's what you had on the application, and you want to still reduce it to 731, which is whatever percentage that works out to be is the percentage you're wanting to reduce the total by.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And you'd already said that there's about 1,200 students are going to be living there once both phases are completely finished and open. About what, 900 at the first phase and another 300 in the second phase. Do you have?
Approximately, yeah.
Do you have? When I was reading, it said that you had looked at the parking situation at the lodge and at the Hill, and I think you had said on your application that there was always like 40% availability, or that it was like there wasn't 100% full for the parking lots. There was like 40% vacant. Is that number? When did you get to that number? Was that? I'm assuming pre-pandemic. But when did you?
Yeah, it was definitely pre-pandemic. It's actually been a data set that we've been working on and collecting now for years, since the completion of the lodge about 4 years ago. We've gone in, we've counted these facilities at 6 a.m., at 9:30 p.m., when you would think everybody would still be home and in their units. We've looked at Providence, we've looked at the ACC project, up near Barnes and Noble, and that 60% is really a maximum, and 60% in terms of number of beds versus number of spaces. Many times it's less than 50%, as was the case with Colony when it was actually under 40. But we've been collecting that data for 4 years now, and most recently, in the fall semester is when we update a lot of those counts for the adjacent projects.
Okay, so you're expecting basically 4 or 60% on average. I mean, if it goes more, that's fine, but you're anticipating whatever 60% of 731 is what you're kind of estimating it's going to probably be on a typical day.
On a typical day, yes.
Bob, I don't know if you were going to ask this or not, because you brought up the, is any of the parking spaces going to be land banked, or are they all going to be built once phase 2 is completed?
In this case, they're all going to be built. We are building out the majority of the site. Again, we're trying to maximize the density within reason that we can build here because it's so close to the college and which offers, benefits that I've stated earlier. So in this particular case, it's the land bank for phase 1 that we're building out. But for phase 2, we don't have the option, there's really no room to do additional land banking. But with that said, because there is so much available parking in the market at adjacent properties, during lease up, if we ever got anywhere near our capacity, which we can track very easily, it's not like a grocery store or some kind of retail use where you don't have control over parking. People just show up. In this case, we very much can control who parks on the project through the leasing process. And if we ever got anywhere near that number, then we could look to a multitude of those other option students if they did have cars. Again, we don't think we'd ever get to that situation, but when it comes to the land bank concept, it's not a traditional land bank approach, but there's certainly a lot of other options for parking if it was ever needed. No one's going to be parking on John Street or anything like that.
Okay, any other questions for members of the board? Heather, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns from members of the audience?
Nothing.
Okay, with regard to application numbers 2020-39 and 2020-40 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, has considered all relevant information, and 3, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. 1, the variances will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties, as student housing is in the area of the project. 2, the variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. 3, the variances requested is not substantial, as many students do not have cars being close to campus. 4, the variances will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. 5, the difficulty relating to the variances was self-created. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby approve the variances as presented.
I second.
Roll vote. Robert Peckham.
Aye.
John Migliorone.
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain.
Aye.
Beth Mossworth.
Aye.
Heather Robinson.
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You as
Thank
well.
Thank you.
Our next application is 2020-041 by Ryan and Abby Ammerman.
So looking at adding the garage to the side of the house. I see some information on the documents that you supplied, but could you give me a little bit of a rundown of what the goal is for the extra space and what happens to the existing garage out of curiosity when you're doing this?
So basically, we're looking to get a more appropriately sized storage area for vehicles and to do work on said vehicles. Currently, we have a 1-car garage that is, in our opinion, pretty awkwardly placed and not super useful. So we're looking to change that. We've been in touch with our neighbor on the adjoining property. We've kept him informed of what we're looking to do. He has no objections. At this point, he's only concerned about what's happening with the hedges, which is to be determined.
Are they your hedges?
I believe they're his.
Okay. Some of the things that we asked earlier, and I guess we can leave this up to the other people on the board, but the concerns that we have are potential fire concerns. What happens if there's something happens in the backyard? Do you feel that there's adequate access behind the house or to get behind the house because of that tight tolerance on the side? Only being 5 feet.
Admittedly, that's not something I'm quite sure of. When we were speaking with the contractor, they told us that if we were to build any closer than 5 feet from the setback, we would need special fire rated materials. But that was the only discussion we had regarding any sort of fire issue and access to the back.
And what are you going to do with the garage that's already there?
For the time being, it's just going to be a storage room. Real long term, we're looking to convert that into more of a living space, but that's not something that's happening anytime soon.
That's all my questions, Doug.
Out of curiosity, are you going to be moving your existing shed back, or are you going to be taking it down?
The shed is going to be demolished as part of this project.
Yeah, okay.
Is there, I know the garage addition is 23 by 27. Is there any chance that you could potentially reduce that in the case that there was a fire concern?
With the goals of what we want with the garage to accommodate our vehicles, that's not something we're interested in doing, if at all possible.
Okay.
We're trying to make a 2-car garage, which I think will better match many of the other properties on the street.
Okay.
Any other questions for members of the board? Heather, do we have any comments, questions, or concerns for members of the audience?
Still nothing.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin Wilson. It looks like there'd be at least 15 feet between the two structures when this is built. So that's a typical minimum setback between for fire rating. Worst case scenario, the applicant could put 5/8 type X drywall within the inside walls of the structure to alleviate some of the concerns of the board.
Kevin, does the 15 feet separation have to be free and clear of hedges?
It just says, 15 structures. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Motion.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this application?
We do. With regard to application number 2020-041 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such a variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. The addition of the garage will allow vehicles and equipment to be inside, which should improve the appeal and is in line with other properties nearby. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The spacing of the lot creates limitations on the design and layout. The variance requested is not substantial. The variance only asks for an extra 3 feet. The variance will not have negative effect on the physical or environmental conditions, and the difficulty relating to the variance was not self-created. The lot spacing has created difficulty the applicants are working with now. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings of fact, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, all those, we'll do roll vote. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Miglione,
Aye.
Kristen Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. You're all set.
Thank you. One quick question, as everyone else has been asking, what are the next steps for us in this process?
Hey, Kevin, can you grab that?
I feel like he's frozen.
Oh,
Frozen.
It's- He's gone.
There we go.
While we're waiting for Kevin to come back, Mr. Ammerman, if you want to call the building department tomorrow morning, they can tell you what the next steps are. I can send you an email after the meeting with the contact information.
That would be great. Thank you.
Our next application is 2020-042 by Minetti Crossings. Do we have a representative for this project?
Yes, my name is Joe Akel. I'm representing 11 Jefferson Partners, as well as the general contractor, FSI General Contractors. I'm also the project manager of the development. Also with me is Frank Clear and Michael Bonanno of Skylight Signs, who are contractors with us, who are helping not only fabricate and install the sign, but also helping us along with design. Some of the items you guys mentioned previously was the size of the sign. I just wanted to clarify that the square footage of the sign is 247 feet, I believe, and Frank, correct me if I'm wrong. And the reason we wanted to go larger with the sign is due to the signs. The size of the signs along Jefferson Road are similar, if not larger. Also, with the fact that the buildings, the Hobby Lobby, and there will be a future building of similar size next to it, are over 600 feet off of Jefferson Road and only access one way off Jefferson Road, which allows good visual for potential customers. Also, the Denny's to the left, if you're looking at the development, hinders sight of future buildings that will be along Jefferson Road as well. One thing we really took into account with the size sign we are proposing is the finishes we like to put on there. It's a little bit different shape. We are also planning to put a higher end, very nice stone veneer on the base, as you can see in the rendering. Also metallic or wood panels with LED accent lighting. And also the rendering doesn't quite show properly, in my opinion, is the setback on the road. It's not, it's about 20, 21 feet away from the road as required. Not quite as close to the road as the rendering reflects.
Do you have enough spaces on your sign for every retail space in the plaza?
Yes, we plan to have a sign space for each space, the Hobby Lobby and every future space that will be in that plaza.
And Mr. Akel, do you have, is there plans for an entrance into the plaza off Clay Road as well, or only on Road?
There is an entrance off of Clay. The main entrance for the plaza will be solely off of Jefferson, though.
Okay.
Curiosity, when I'm looking at the picture with the rendering of the sign, and the Hobby Lobby to the right in that picture, is that looking from Jefferson or from Clay? I assume Jefferson.
That's Jefferson Road, yes.
The rendering is a little bit off of scale too. We didn't do the rendering, an architect did that, and it's not showing proportion to how far back that building is. And also the sign itself is a little larger than to scale what that is. It's a little smaller than that. That's just kind of like a pretty picture of the sign.
Yeah, that's correct. That's a preliminary rendering. That was mainly to reflect finishes that we wanted on the actual pylon. We really wanted to pop and be impressive because it's a new plaza and there's some really very beautiful pylons on Jefferson Road. We wanted it to enhance the plaza and make the whole thing look much more complete and together when it's completed. Also to help generate future tenants with a nice pylon sign was a big deal as well.
And from the picture, you're also looking to add more signage to the buildings themselves on top of the board, the reader board signs. correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
It looks like you're also going to be adding signage on the building walls themselves. For example, Hobby Lobby will have the big
Yeah.
sign up front and probably going to request a large sign on the building.
That's correct. The Hobby Lobby will have the Hobby Lobby sign on it. The building next to it is a proposed, it could be a 55,000 square foot building. It could be 2 buildings. We're not exactly sure yet from the development standpoint. They will have store signs on them as well. And then there's out parcels along Jefferson Road. I don't know the exact plan. We don't have tenants for that yet. I would assume there will be some signage there for those tenants. The size, I'm not positive of. That rendering and the finishes on those buildings, that's purely conceptual at that point for those tenants out front.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the board? Heather, do we have any questions, comments, concerns from members of the audience?
Nothing.
Actually, Doug, I do have one more. I want to repeat the thing that I heard. You're not actually asking for 494 square feet. Is that what you said in the beginning, Joel?
Yes, one sign cabinet, I believe, is 247 square feet.
What they did, Robert, is they doubled the square footage. If you look on our drawing, we calculated the square footage, and when the town calculated, they doubled it because they charge a fee per face. But the industry standard, I've been, on the national board, and we help write sign code. When you look at a sign, whether it's single or double sided, the square footage is when you see it at one spot. You don't count that sign as 400 and some odd square feet because it's double sided. You only see it from one position. Just like a building mounted sign, you only see, straight on. So the calculations of square footage on a pylon sign should only be looking at it one face. If, we did kind of a survey of other pylons that are up and down the street, and looking at one side, they're all 250, 280, 290, and some are even higher than that square footage wise. Similar plaza, main tenants like Home Depot. Home Depot is a single company. They've got a 160 square foot pole sign, and then they've got 8-foot high channel letters on the building. They definitely needed a variance for that, but that's some extensive signage.
So, Kevin or Heather or somebody, is that correct? We're measuring as 494 because we're counting it as both sides, correct?
Correct. That's 247 or the square footage on one side times twice. If you look at our drawing, the total is 247, and they went times 2, so they got 494.
Okay.
Yes, so as a point of clarification, Heather or Eric or whoever needs to answer this, so it is in terms of, we are granting 494 for our records, correct?
Kevin, is your audio working?
It should be now, yes.
Okay.
So we're looking at the table from the chart is 4-lane road is 100 square feet per side is allowed for a pole sign. So that's where we got the 200 from. And then it says if more than one face, total permitted area may not exceed twice the area permitted for one face. So we're looking at, that's where we got those numbers from. 200 is allowed, 100 per side.
Okay.
Okay. That clarifies. Thank you.
Okay, do we need discussion on this, or are we ready to move this?
We need a straw man count on this, Mr. Chairman, before I move it.
I will table this for discussion. Our next application is application 043 by Melissa Scott. Melissa with us?
I'm here. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Can you talk about your project for a little bit?
Sure. So for 043, I'm looking to have a shed put on the side of my garage. That's to, I need that in order to take some of the stuff that I have in my garage, like my lawnmower, and then it's just a lot of stuff in my garage. So I need a shed to just make some room for that. And then I'm also asking to widen my driveway, just because I have a daughter now who's driving, and then I have another adult here. So there's 3 cars, and even though I have a 2-car garage, it does not fit 2 cars. So the way that my garage is set up, I usually just park like right in the middle of the garage. So when I'm backing out of the garage, I'm always nervous that I'm either going to hit my daughter's car or, my roommate's car. So I'm just asking to be able to extend it over like 6 feet. That way I'll have enough clearance for when I'm backing up. And then also, so when my daughter's, she's a new driver too. So when she's pulling in, I don't have to worry about any of that. And also, since I am asking for the shed, the reason why I'm asking for the variance is because I want to put a double door in the front where my current garage is. So I'm asking, so that way I don't have to be on my neighbor's lawn in order to like put the if I'm putting stuff in, I would have to go on his driveway or in his lawn in order to get in. So I'm asking for the door. I'm asking it to be a little bit wider so I can fit double doors in the front. And then also to get the driveway wide, and it'll be, it'll look like a 3-car garage once it's done. Power. Hold on.
Okay, any questions for members of the board? Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns from members of the audience?
I have nothing.
All right, do we have a motion on these 3 applications?
Do I need them on 2 or can I do them on 1?
I would do them together, John.
Do them all on 1? Yeah, that's what,
Yeah, I think you can do them on 1.
okay. Mr. Chairman, with regards to application ZBA 2000 or 2020-043-044-045 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held public hearings, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefits to the application versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the characteristic of the neighborhood. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative, as the placement of the shed she needs for the storage. The variance is substantial, but they're only requesting 4 inches. The variance will not have a negative effect on the physical and environmental conditions. The difficulty related to the variance was not self-created, or was self-created, and therefore be it resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approves variance as presented.
I second.
Go ahead, Jesse.
I second.
Vote by roll. Robert Peckham,
Aye.
John Miglioroni,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. These applications are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last application tonight is application 2020-046 by Patrick Weatherow.
Yes, thank you.
Patrick, can you state a little bit about your application?
Yeah, we purchased the property in March with an existing length of crushed cement driveway. We would like to pave the existing driveway and then add an extra space at the top for our 2 vehicles.
Questions from the board?
You just mentioned that you are going to pave the entire driveway, so that was one of my questions, if you were just going to be extending a stone or if you were going to be paving it, so that's one of the questions. So I want to thank you also for being very thorough with filling out the form here, because it was very helpful. But you said you had already spoken with your neighbor and they were aware that they were okay with the extension that you're proposing.
Thank you.
And basically, are you going to be doing the work yourself, or are you going to be having someone come in to do it for you, or?
Yeah, we have working with Onyx Paving. They're out of, I believe, Greece, I think is where they're based. I'm not sure. But yeah, we're working with someone to do it for us.
Okay. And you just need the extra width just for like for extra cars, or give me any trailers there, or just gonna be like?
We have 2 vehicles ourselves, and playing car shuffle in the morning is annoying. We're driving through the lawn to get out sometimes, and it'd be nice just to be able to park, next to each other and not in line like we are right now.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions for members of the board?
No.
Questions, comments, or concerns from members of the audience, Heather?
Nothing.
Okay, do I have a motion on this application?
Yes. With regard to application number ZBA 2020-046 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, has considered all relevant information, and 3, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be it resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. The addition of a paved driveway will enhance the look of the neighborhood and the property. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. No other alternative exists in order to conform with town code. The variance requested is not substantial. The size of the driveway proposed is in line with adjacent properties. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. Any drainage will not be significantly drainage will not be significantly affected. And the difficulty relating to the variance was self-created. Current driveway is not conducive due to the number of vehicles owned by the applicant. And be it further resolved, based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby approves the variance as presented.
I'll second.
Roll vote. Robert Peckham.
Aye.
John Miglioroni.
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain.
Aye.
Beth Mossworth.
Aye.
Heather Robinson.
Aye.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. This motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to go back to application 42 for discussion.
Yeah, so I just wanted to do a straw man on this before I make a motion. So I'm in favor.
You're in favor?
I'm in favor.
Okay.
Christian, you're in favor?
Yes.
Okay, that's
I am not.
John?
I'm in favor.
Green.
Bob?
I am not in favor.
Okay. Heather?
I am not in favor.
Beth?
I'm good with it.
Okay, you can go ahead and move it.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, with regard to application number ZBA 2020-042 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, has considered all relevant information, And 3, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Zoning Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties, as multiple nearby properties have signs of a similar size. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative, as no other options would achieve the same impact needed on the property. The variance requested is substantial, as this is over double the square footage allowed by town code, but there is a positive impact on the local economy. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions, as no destruction of green. The difficulty relating to the variance was self-created, as the owner knew the property conditions at the time of purchase, but this variance request is reasonable. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby approves the variance as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, vote by roll. Robert Peckham,
Nay.
John Maglione,
Aye.
Christian Chamberlain,
Aye.
Beth Mossworth,
Aye.
Heather Robinson,
Nay.
Jesse Redlow.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. We'll adjourn tonight's meeting at 8 p.m.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night, everybody.